We're live chat.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the SACRA meeting, the 25th of November 2025. Are we all familiar with each other in the room, or shall we just go round? I think we ought to, really, given that it's the first time we're meeting since the summer, I think. So I'll begin by introducing myself. I'm Councillor Cecile Wright and the chair of this meeting.
Shaheen Parek, DCCS.
Ian Nicholson, advisor to SACRA, working for RE Today.
Carmel Ashby, Abbey Ward councillor.
Special education. I asked the faith representative for Islam.
Liz Seymour, representative Church of England.
Judith Willows, representative Baptist Church.
Harpal Singh Dillon, representing Sikh Faith, Gurdjieff Gurdwara. I'm David Earn, I'm a representative from the Methodist Church.
Jack Roberts, also DCC officer.
So welcome everyone, and welcome to those who are have tuned in to observe what will be a productive and engaging meeting. Okay, do we have any apologies?
Yes, we do, Chair. We've had apologies from Mariam Javid, Councillor Smale, Ranjit Singh Sira, and Councillor Morgan McGee, and maybe late.
Okay, right. Are there any live items that you're aware of, Jack?
None, Chair.
Okay. Any declarations of interest? No? Right, we'll now go to the minutes of the last meeting we had, which was on the 25th of June. I'll go through for accuracy first, for those who were in attendance, and I will pick up matters arising if there are any. Okay, right, so page 1, this is for accuracy, for those who are in attendance. Page 1.
Sorry, Chair.
Sorry. Oh, go on.
Just for interest, Group A, it says Miriam representing Sikh Faith. Is that?
Oh, no, that's a typo.
Right, which one's that group? Oh, right, okay. Yeah, I think that was an error. Yeah, thank you for drawing
Since I wasn't here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, thank you for drawing our attention to that. So anything else on page 1 by way of accuracy? And then page 2. Page 3. Page 4. And finally, page 5. I think some of the actions here will be picked up in the agenda, formal agenda. Are there any matters arising for anyone here at this stage? Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so we'll turn to the first item, substantive item on the agenda, and that is the collective worship. Shaheen will be presenting the paper. Shaheen, when you're ready, please.
I just make note that Amanda Greaves was going to support this item, but she's stuck in traffic, so we'll proceed in her absence and hope she'll arrive in good time. The reason collective worship is on the agenda today is because as a SACRA, you identified this as an area that you wanted to develop. So to help support that conversation, I reached out to members of the SACRA who expressed an interest in supporting that process. As a SACRA, we do not have information about what collective worship currently looks like in our schools. So we'd like to enact a process in which we can get some more information about that. It would be unfair to say it's not taking place, because it clearly is, but we just need to have a handle on what that looks like. So it's a proposal, a strategy and approach that we're going to employ, and actually rather than me leading this conversation, I'd like to thank some members of the SACRA that came forward to attend a meeting that Jack and I facilitated not too long ago now, to have a conversation about what collective worship could look like and what we'd like to do to support that. I would like to say at the outset, though, thank you to Ian. I know you provided a document that I've shared with Democratic Services, and I know people have had an opportunity to have a look at what another local authority does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over, if I may, to Liz and then to Reverend David Owen, and then if Amanda comes in time, hopefully Amanda as well, because they each have expertise in this area, and then collectively we can discuss what the approach may potentially look like, if that's okay. So Liz, I'll hand over to you if that's okay.
So I am the acting director of the Derby Darson Board of Education, supporting Church of England schools across the diocese. So that includes Derby City and Derbyshire. So I provide advice and guidance for the Church of England schools, and I provide a monthly collective worship briefing, which is free for them to attend. And we look at different themes relating either to the Church of England liturgical year or to general themes that they wish to discuss. And we look at good practice. We also provide guidance documents. And this is all very Church of England based, I do realise. So, but we're looking at the 4 parts that the collective worship of gathering, engaging, responding and sending out. As a science inspector, I also go around and I inspect schools. Part of that is looking at their collective worship. Again, it's all very much Church of England based, so I am very mindful of that. But I'm very happy to make contact. I do go and visit those schools to learn what they're doing, to see what they're doing, especially around their inclusivity, because a lot of the schools like St James Junior in the city, the majority of pupils who attend school are not of the Church of England faith. So it's looking how they still provide collective worship, which is inclusive of all faiths and of no faith, and they do it incredibly well. So I'd be more than happy to, be involved in collecting information and sharing that good practice. And we also have other schools, St James Infant, who have a lot of children with SEND needs, and how they are inclusive of those children, because all are invited and all start the collective worship. Some might then gradually leave, depending upon their needs. But I think there's such a wealth of good practice that's going on in those schools, it'd be well worth sharing.
Thank you. I think that's really useful input. And whilst we're not suggesting that is the only way, we thought it was important to share an approach that takes place amongst a collective group of schools. Thank you for the offer of going to visit the schools as well. I think that would be really useful, because you've already identified a very diverse school setting in Derby City. And so how you've captured that is really useful. So thank you for that. So Reverend, are we okay to hand over to you to talk about what we discussed?
Just by way of background, prior to moving to Derby, I was chaplain and head of philosophy at Loughborough Grammar School. But I was chaplain to Loughborough Schools Foundation, which includes 1,000-odd boys grammar school, 800-odd girls high school, a Roman Catholic convent, and a preparatory school. Now, none of the schools had any majority faith represented. So in the average class that I would teach, there would not be a majority of any particular faith. The school is majestically multicultural, multi-faith. It is a Christian foundation established in 1495, so it goes back a little while. But we adopted a policy in keeping with the law, where inclusion has to be the broadly Christian, but in an inclusive way. And we followed the ideas of a scholar who spoke about the spirit of the school, who was very much in line with what we as Sacre is about, is introducing people to the wealth of religious experience in Britain, but how to include that rather than tolerate. And this document that you circulated is very useful in that it reminds us. So Professor Julian Stern wrote a book called The Spirit of the School, and I recommend that to members of Sacred. And so what we did, the headmaster, who was a Roman Catholic, and myself as a Methodist, we put forward a way of collective worship that would be strongly inclusive, and at the same time, not in any way in conflict with any Christian tradition. And so the things, the hymns and the songs that we sang celebrated all those things that we have in common. And it became very, very popular. In fact, I can't think in the 10 years that I was there that any family asked to be excluded from the whole process. Even at major formal events. Now, Founders' Day would be significant because it was founded in 1495. We were able to put together a service in the local parish church, which is the home of the school, where anybody could say, so be it, with the prayers even. You just took out the specifically Christian terminology. And so I'm saying that it is possible, because I did it for 10 years. Also, just as a matter of interest, the headmistress of the girls' school became president of the Girls' Schools Association. At the end of her, and she was also totally committed to the idea of inclusion. And I think if I contribute anything to this meeting, it's the focus on inclusiveness rather than tolerance. And she was very keen. That was the theme of her year, because many of the Girls' Schools Association schools are independent schools, and some of them are quite exclusive. She wanted to address that. And we got together, she said, can we have an act of worship at the end of my presidential year that demonstrates inclusiveness? And so I put together a formal liturgy. And by the time I got up to deliver the short address, I asked the question, would we all agree that what we have done so far is conduct a profound Christian act of worship? And you can see the people nod. And I said, just think of what we've done, because this is going to continue after the message. Would any Hindu or Muslim or Sikh or Jew or Zoroastrian or whatever faith have any objection to what we've done so far? And they all nodded again. And so what I'm trying to say is that there can be something really beautifully done that means that nobody feels that they are excluded, but that everybody can, as part of a community, celebrate what we share in common, which is more than what we have that divides us. And so, yeah, I mean, I've got lists of hymns and songs that are inclusive, and, you know, so prayers that can be inclusive. I'm also, just as a matter of interest, and I won't prolong that, I'm a chaplain at the Multi-Faith Centre at the University of Derby. And we get together at certain times of the year and say inclusive prayers. So that's my contribution.
Thank you. And it was a great one in terms of, I'm sorry, Chair. So we've obviously had two heavily focused Christian approaches, and obviously we're a representation of Derby, and that's really important. Whilst these representatives have come here to share that because they offered to share in the previous meeting, so that's why. So I just want to be absolutely clear, that's why we've had these inputs. And Amanda has obviously arrived.
Yeah, Amanda, do you want a few minutes to settle? Okay. I know it's a little challenge out there, but thank you so much for coming along. We've got a fantastic turnout this evening, I have to say. Yeah. When you're ready, Amanda, do you want me to give you a few minutes? We're just wanting your, basically, your thoughts in terms of collective worship.
Yeah, when we met a few weeks ago, I just shared my experience as Ofsted inspector and how I felt that in all the years I've been doing that, I haven't seen collective worship within our maintained schools. And I think some of that is around the unknown and staff not necessarily feeling comfortable about what that looks like. So one of the things that I said I'd share is we've just had a new prayer and liturgy directory. And so that sort of outlines for our Catholic schools what that looks like to give those non-specialists support. Because of course within Catholic sector, you would have non-Catholic staff that would be leading collective worship. So I just felt some kind of guidance for schools, and I know that's within the pack came today, but I think that would be useful. I don't think it's a case of actively not doing it, but just not knowing what that looks like in those maintained schools. And I just think anything we can do to support that would be useful. I think that's all I've said, Richard.
Thank you for that presentations. I'm going to open it up just to throw out a few headlines. Inclusiveness rather than tolerance. How we get the unknown known. And the offer of practical guidance. Okay, I'll open up the floor. Yes, please.
Just a few comments to, like David, my background. I came to Britain at the age of 13, attended secondary modern school in Normanton. Our head teacher, although predominantly the prayer in the morning was always Christian based, but occasionally he will give a talk which is based on some humanist or some sort of prominent leader, maybe from India, Mahatma Gandhi, or somebody else. And by and large, people always accepted that. As I say again, without prejudice, there was a very heavy-handedness sometime in the assembly. Some of the teachers will notice that the Muslim students would not read the Lord's Prayer, and they used to be given punishment. First one, then two, and then he induced a few more as they came. Then it used to be a line of 10, 20 who would be given cane. It didn't quite fit into my brain. I always been kind of inclusive in my talks. Guru Granth Sahib Ji includes virtually everybody. There are 35 saints where Hindus and Muslim background saints are also included, as long as there's oneness of God and oneness of humanity. As I grew up, I got involved when I was lecturing at Derby College in Multi-Faith Centre here in Derby. So I'm one of the original member and chair, which I chaired for 7 years when we collected the funding and so on. And because at a more advanced level, it was different from schools. Everybody accepted everybody, and the idea was one for all and all for one. So we were able to deliver, for example, we tailored, if you like, 6-7 weeks lectures in such a way, or workshop type in such a way, where you will either have Christians background being delivered, or encountering Sikhi, or encountering Hinduism, and so on. And they were very well attended and very appreciated by people. And I think that this sort of thing, I mean, even in here in Sacre, we implemented that. If some of the members may remember, when a certain faith individual would be asked to say, can you give us about 10 minutes to talk about your religion? So going back to the schools, I think it's a good idea that we should start at the grassroots so that the individuals do not, well, they know their neighbor. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. For any other contributions? Right. Yes, please, Imran.
So, also, before I talk about collective worship, I just want to, in the spirit of inclusivity, welcome my colleagues, Cheryl, who you all know from the NASUP, and Kieran, who's new, who's part of the MEU, so he's joining us as well now. So I've been looking into the worldviews approach, and this is the main spirit and thrust of the curriculum, that we now put forward. But in the worldviews approach, sometimes what we miss is a very personal engagement with a belief system, because it's seen as a general sort of worldview approach. And so I think that in assemblies and collective worship, we have this opportunity for representatives from the different faith groups and no faith groups to come and talk about and introduce young people to that particular personal relationship to their faith, you know? And so it's excellent. I think that might be one of the approaches that I'd like to suggest. But in doing that, I think there's also the caveat of something that came in the media within last week, and that was this big case in Northern Ireland, where parents were not happy about their child participating in certain collective worship and so indoctrination as it was conceived by the Supreme Court. So I think we should be very careful of, although we want to be inclusive, participation can be just by observation and learning about something rather than having an hands-on. So that's something that we need to, I think, should be something that we should be part of our guidance at least. And then another thing as well, and maybe this is another kind of like avenue or approach we should look into, is the SMSE aspect of the framework of the RE curriculum as well. So looking at the social, moral, spiritual and cultural aspects. And of course, collective worship would be a great way of bringing that into a whole school's approach towards teaching art.
Thank you for that. Ian.
Yeah.
Judith.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, one of the things is also making schools aware of what collective worship actually is, and it's something that was the idea is it's not corporate worship, and I think that's the key thing to get over to schools. And you know, but Simon's inspector as well as an Ofsted inspector going into schools and saying, you know, people say, well, we can't get together because we can't get in the same room. That's not what it's about. And I think that's a key thing, is that there's still understanding that collective is not corporate. And I think it's a key thing for schools to understand that actually, but also that collective worship is distinctly different to the curriculum. And I think that's something that's really, really important. It's not just another add-on to the curriculum. It's something that is, which links then to the SMC, and ensuring therefore that if you're looking at what collective worship is, let's go back, you know, getting schools to think about the root of worthship. So what is worthy of recognition in our school, in our local community? And one of the things is, and I will be talking about the curriculum assessment review shortly, but, and as Speaker Shaheen earlier, that last week I was at the Ministry of Local Government, Housing and Communities, and they are really into looking at how education can support community cohesion, equity, diversity, inclusion. They are very interested in that at the moment. And the idea of collective worship enabling the school to be a community that reflects the community of the school. I think that's a key thing really when I looked at collective worship, that, you know, some schools still are thinking we've got to get together in a hall, we can't do it, so we don't do it. That's not what it's about. You know, I was senior leader in a school of 1,800 pupils. We were never going to get together for collective worship. You know, the whole held 1 year group, never mind 7. So the idea is it's the guidance there that's practical, but also very much around the philosophical understanding of what collective worship, as envisioned in the 88 Education Act, really helps people to understand. And I do know there is a big call at the moment for DFE, with everything that's going on, to look at their non-statutory guidance from 2010 about RE and collective worship. That has been asked for, so there could be something there. But, you know, with the responsibility of the SACRE to provide a determination if a school to ask for it, it's important that guidance really supports the senior leaders and the teachers in the schools to understand what the aim of collective worship is, but also then to say it's not RE. I think that's a key thing, and it's one of the things with SACRE is that we have collective worship and RE. RE is a subject, collective worship is part of the wider school life. I think that's a key thing for us to remember.
I would like to come back at some stage.
Could I, Judith, and then you can come back, and then Carmel.
Hello, I spent some time supposedly learning French in France, to teach French, and I was very interested in the fact French schools do not have any equivalent of meeting together for any kind of worship. Every kind of what seemed to be RE or religion is taken out of schools, and I do think there's actually a lot of value in meeting together, and I take what Ian said on board. You can't always all get together, but there is something about experiencing things together, experiencing an atmosphere, even a silence together, a song together, listening together to the same thing, that I do think is very important. And I do think it goes beyond any kind of faith, though my experience is absolutely in Church of England schools. I remember your equivalent coming to us years and years ago, and he said, you never say, this is what you believe.
if you're talking in any sense about faith, you're saying, I believe this, but other people don't necessarily. And I think that's important to have that balance of letting them experience things, situations, morals, dilemmas, but not being prescriptive. And I think that comes within collective worship as nowhere else in school.
Just to briefly come back, inclusion doesn't mean not celebrating difference. In our experience, when it was Diwali, then the Hindus and the Sikhs would take collective worship in that period. Before Ramadan happened, then the Muslim staff or guests or outsiders would come in and tell the school as part of collective, and I agree. There is something, yes, you can have it as year groups, but if you can get together as a corporate group, I don't think we should diminish the significance of that, of the value of the whole school coming together, because the whole school, so inclusion is not only going to the lowest common denominator. Inclusion, in my understanding of it, is that you're different to me and I celebrate that. Help me to understand what is special to you so that I can understand and celebrate it with you. And then maybe you might be interested in me and what makes me tick. And so it is not just tolerance. And that is why I make a distinction between tolerance and inclusion. Says be free to be who you are, but share who you are with me so that I can understand and respect it. I might not agree with it, but that's not the issue.
Something we do.
We accept the difference and we live in that way. But just the 2 points, we must be clear that inclusion doesn't mean wishy-washy. Inclusion means celebrating difference. And the second thing, in coming together, it's good to do it in year groups and all that, but there's a very important place for the whole school community, even if it sometimes happens outside, to celebrate important things. Thank you.
Okay, can I, Councillor Ashby, please?
Thank you. And thank you everybody for what you've brought, and especially from those who've met as a group today. It was really great to hear, Liz, about you talking about the inclusion of the SEND children. Because in some of the papers we've read today, there was a question mark over whether some thought it didn't apply to SEND. So it's really good to hear that. Thank you. I mean, I agree with so much of what's already been said by everybody, but I really wanted to particularly say, which you've brought out to a degree, David, that I really agree with Imran, that having that collective worship is inclusive, it will be enriched if we can have people from the different faiths bringing the reality of their faith to it. Because I think there's a difference between hearing about something in a more sterile situation and hearing about something from somebody for whom it's a lived experience. And I think it would be really great and enriching and will help cohesion, I believe, in our schools if that collective worship has that rich flavour of reality from all the different traditions that we're all from here and those around here as well. So I think it's really important.
Okay. Thank you for that, Councillor Ashby. Imran, you wanted to come back and then Shaheen.
It's to add a little bit on. So there's also this thing about, to help people to become and celebrate another, they also really need to know who they are. And we need to be aware of the political reality within schools as well, especially given the last minute and with the social cohesion agendas and stuff, and prevent people expressing who they are. And so they should really be encouraged to do that within the school, the whole school, and also within the RE classrooms as well. So maybe it's something around that could also be part of the guidance workshop.
Shaheen, did you want to come back?
Yeah, just to say, so we know because of this process and with the new framework, we've facilitated RE networks. They are continuing to take place since the framework has launched. 2 RE networks have taken place. They've been supported by RE today, but informed about what teachers in the city want. Unfortunately, I'm saddened to say attendance has dwindled slightly. However, we are aware of commitments. So as opposed to there being 2 separate network meetings for primary and secondary, we've combined those. my reason for raising that in this space is we have another network meeting coming up in this academic year. I would like collective worship to feature on that agenda. What that looks like, how that's shaped is up for discussion. So it's just to make sure that's kind of, you're aware of that, but also to bring back an example has been shared of what another local authority does. Whether that's adopted by other local authorities, I don't know. You'd be the person to be able to answer that sort of, I mean, is that a favoured approach? Do local
I think where local authorities have had or have written collective worship guidance, they have shared it with themselves. So it's a common understanding, especially when schools have been on the boards of local authorities and children are coming from different areas, especially around when you're moving from the smaller primary schools into larger secondary schools. So there's that commonality across the area. So there is some sharing of good practice out there at the moment. So that's,
I don't know if people had time to look at the guidance.
Yes.
That's really good, actually.
Yeah.
This from South, I thought it was very good. Very good.
Okay, did you say something further, and then we need to move on?
So, yeah, I looked at that document, and I think as a general guidance document, reasonable surface level is good, you know, but I think it really should be made unique to our sort of like the situation and context. So yeah, and I'm happy to join the working group to develop that if you need to.
Okay, for no further contributions. Yeah, go on.
Could I ask a question about the collective worship? Because I read the document and thought it was very good and comprehensive. And I, you know, maybe the immediate thing, well, do all of our schools in Derby have a policy? Because presumably they should. My son-in-law is a deputy head in Derby, so I immediately messaged him and he said, yes, we do.
Yeah.
But I obviously thought, you know, it makes us aware of what is needed. So I thought, well, should we be asking all of our schools? But you've probably already
that's
done
for
that.
the
Not yet,
that's for the work.
yeah,
group
that
to
was
do. That's what.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, finally, and then we will have to move to making a decision about establishing a working group to take this forward because of being a statutory requirement. Yes, you too, please.
Just was going to say a single sentence.
Yes.
That some of the current situation in the world that we are seeing, where religions are being manipulated, both in India and in the Middle East, this sort of thing will avoid that.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, so
It's a great contribution.
A counter strategy, yeah?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Counter narrative.
I will add just one sentence. People in schools are reluctant because they're afraid it's something to be feared. We have a statutory job as SACRI
Absolutely.
to introduce them to ideas that will make them want to celebrate it as something that will enrich their school experience. I mentioned Julian Stern's book, The Spirit of the School. There's nothing better to encourage a really good spirit amongst all the peoples of faith. Let's remove the fear and replace it with something to celebrate.
I hope you can make a contribution to that, Reverend Owen. Okay, we need to make a decision following our deliberation. A part of the decision that this committee needs to make, just to remind ourselves and those that are listening in, is that collective worship is a statutory requirement, courtesy of the Education Reform Act 1988, deriving from the Education Regulations 1981. So it is compulsory within our schools. So as a committee, we're required to obviously give guidance. And I'm hoping that we will establish a working advisory group comprised of Dr. Reverend Owen, David, Amanda Greaves, who's spoken, and Liz Seymour, of the three people who were, I'm going to go over the page in a minute. So these are the three individuals who were presented to us this evening. In addition to those three individuals, we're also inviting members of this committee to volunteer. In particular, we're asking for representation from Group C, which is, just remind me who Group C are again
Trade union colleagues.
trade union colleagues. We're looking for representation from that grouping and Group D, which I assume are the councillors.
Yes.
Okay, so can I have volunteers, please? Is there an upper limit to sit on this advisory group?
It's no upper limit.
No, okay, right,
Happy to.
okay, so
Two members.
two. Okay, so we have two members who are prepared to be on the advisory group. What about the councillors? Councillor Ashby?
I would like to be part of it, but my commitments are unclear in the coming months. So whilst I would love to be a part of it.
Can you and I sort of do a joint?
Yeah, unless
Yes, please. Councillor McBride, would you like to be part of it?
About my skill, my ability to service enough.
You're what, sorry?
I'm concerned about my ability to serve on
capacity,
the group
his capacity.
Presbyterian.
Oh, yes, I
If
think
we
we
share
will.
it. then-
Well, if we do so myself and Councillor Ashby.
I'm just slightly concerned, and I'm not putting myself forward because I'm
I think you
representing
ought to.
Baptist as well.
I think you ought
So
to.
we haven't got anybody at the moment I can see for another faith.
Yeah.
And although we were saying it's
You ought
predominantly,
to.
yes, good.
Yeah,
Because
could you
I think
put
that's
yourself
important to
forward then, please? Would you like to put yourself forward as well, please? Yes, okay.
Everybody's going to be there then.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so Judy and Ardil, please. Dr. Dylan, please. Okay, right. So having established the group, you are requested as a group to formulate a document and submit the draft of this document to us for looking at, commenting on and agreeing. Is that okay? I don't know what the deadline is for the submission. Okay,
Is this a document similar to that provided by Southend?
well, I suppose that is a template. that
It's
we can-
remit rather than examples of good practice.
Yeah, it's a template that can be utilised, adapted. Why reinvent the wheel if you find that it is good enough? You can adapt it for the local situation. Okay. So just remind us again, particularly for those that are listening in to us, who the group members are, the advisory group members are, please.
So we have had nominations to the group from Cheryl Fern in Ranareth, Councillor Ashby and Councillor Wright will share the position from Group D. Dr. Hardy of Singh Dillon has also been nominated. And Judith, have you? Would you like to join the group? I don't know if you.
I think you ought to, Judy.
Got to put down, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
I think
Okay,
you ought to do that.
the meetings at a time I can get there, yeah.
Certainly we have the different. Did you want to say something?
Just to ask, based on this, thank you, as in that's brilliant, because you coming together to help shape that is wonderful. I recognise we've only given you an example, but we've had two colleagues that work in different spaces that potentially have their own guidance that they can help share as well. So you haven't just got one. But can I ask you, what would you like me to help ask at the next RE network that could help inform what you need? So if you could just once, I don't know, you have a meeting, that meeting won't be taking place the network until the new year, but if you have some questions you'd like me to pose to RE leads to help support that process, then please do let me know.
Okay, would you do that? If you have some questions, could you email both Jack and Shaheen outside the meeting, please? As soon as you're ready.
Shireen's email address.
Yeah, Jack,
Or if we send it to Jack,
facilitate.
will it get through Shireen? Yeah.
Yeah, Jack will facilitate that. After the meeting, perhaps as an action, you can just sort of email out the people who volunteered and ask them to invite questions, observations for Shaheen. Yes, please. Jane.
Yeah, Amanda, sorry.
Amanda.
I just wonder whether it's worth at the next network asking colleagues in schools what would be ususeful in terms of that document. Thank you. So that we're really clear that we're serving what
Yeah,
schools need,
exactly,
because
yeah.
otherwise we're just really assuming what we
Yeah.
think they might need. And actually, if we could incorporate that into the network, then we've got a basis to start from, haven't we, in terms of what will be really useful to schools in staff in schools.
I think that's a great idea, but I'm assuming that one of the things that will happen when the advisory group meets is that you decide on your methodology, how you're going to garner information, what you're going to, the scoping, references you will draw on. I think those sort of processes, practical things, hopefully as a group you'll discern once you've met. Is that okay?
In case we didn't meet before that network, it would be a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
email.
Thinking of Microsoft Forms already. That's what we're
We are.
talking about.
Okay, so this is what I like. People to get involved. Okay, can we, with that being agreed, then decision with respect to that item, can we now move to item 6 on the agenda, which is the local and national RE updates? And Ian, are you going to give us an update, please?
Jack has sent around kindly the written update. There has been many changes since the update was written. You may be aware of the Curriculum Assessment Review has now published its final report, and it has been accepted by the DfE that RE, subject to any discussions, will become part of the national curriculum from September 2028. Vanessa Ogden, who is on the Curriculum Assessment Review, has been asked to put together a working group. She calls it a task and finish group. That's quite an interesting phrase, that will garner together all representation across the faith groups and across schools as to whether there is a desire for a national curriculum. That will report by the end of March at the latest, because Vanessa is moving on to a new job on the 1st of April, so she has to get it done by then. The consensus at the moment is that it is likely there will be a national curriculum for RE. Moving into all schools, and in the light of that, I had a meeting with colleagues from the department a few weeks ago. The education bill is on pause at the moment to bring in the fact that RE legislation would have to change to make it part of the national curriculum. So at the moment, the legislation is on pause. Should Vanessa then say, and as I say, DfE have accepted that RE should find its place into the curriculum. From March, there'll be a working party to put together the national curriculum, which will include everything from early years all the way through to A-level. So they are talking about rewriting the GCSE and A-level specifications as well. Everything comes at once. And the first teaching for that one will be September 2028 going forward. So the aim is it's quite a quick turnaround. And that's why the Task and Finish group is due to report by the end of March about having a national curriculum. It also coincides with RE now being classed, or GCSE Religious Studies now being classed as a humanity. So prior to the Curriculum Assessment Review, RE could not be part of the what was called the English Baccalaureate in terms of the humanities block. It now is one of the greater breadth subjects. So RE now has a similar standing within Attainment 8 and Progress 8 scores, which is what secondary schools are guided by, as a simple humanity. So it's included for its academic breadth. Other things that we're hearing alongside as well is that the national curriculum will not, and I'm going to actually use this phrase for colleagues in the room that came through, they can find it. The aim is not to disrupt church schools education. The idea is that it's not to take away from the distinctiveness of Roman Catholic RE, Church of England RE, faith-based RE in a faith school. So actually that it will be maintained because that's part of the funding arrangements, it's part of the foundation trust documents of each school. So that would not change. However, there would then be a national curriculum for all maintained schools. Now, the current education bill going forward says that all schools, including academies, will have to follow the national curriculum. So therefore, they would all have to follow the new national RE curriculum. This does mean that come September 2028, schools would no longer be teaching a locally agreed syllabus. They will be teaching the new national curriculum. Luckily for Derby, so Shaheen's face will be a picture, is
We're
that
the model.
should
Yeah, we are.
should a local authority have an agreed syllabus that needs reviewing pre-2028, they still have to do it. So it's very interesting. I'm working with local authorities where we're actually reviewing an agreed syllabus for 2027, but it'll only be in place for a year. So the discussion from colleagues we've seen is the government do see value in good working SACRAs. That's their phraseology. They do like SACRAs. Vanessa Ogden, who is leading the review, who is actually an RE teacher, so that helps anyway, or was an RE teacher, says SACRAs are really, really useful. So they would like to see SACRAs continue looking at the idea of efficient delivery of RE in schools, still doing that oversight of schools. John Hutchinson, who was on the curriculum assessment review, said it's very much around the context being of your school. So it's still very locally looking what's happening in the local area. So SACRAs would continue. Obviously, agreed syllabus conferences would not. So the idea is they would go from 2028, but they would like to see SACRAs continuing, and therefore guidance will be coming forward shortly. There was in October a call out for people to put in tender documents to write a new curriculum because they're rewriting the whole national curriculum. So every subject is being rewritten. So for everybody from early years all through all the GCSEs and all the A levels. So that document has gone out. So it looks like the RE will be changing in great detail. And actually, if you read the new Ofsted framework, and we were talking about this earlier, I have an Ofsted inspector in the room, having been through my toolkit, page 19 talks about a statutory curriculum having to have RE on it, which is really interesting for schools. I have pointed that out. Page 21 talks about the forms of knowledge in the subjects, which is what we've got in the Derby agreed syllabus. So we're already there in light of page 21. And page 47 of the Ofsted toolkit talks about the importance of RE and learning about other people's faiths, but also being open to understanding your own belief system, your own faith, and your own worldview. So actually, everything seems to be tying together. Now, the new inspections are just starting now.
10th of November, they started.
Yeah, yes, so the new ones are out there now. But it is seen that RE will be then taking its place in the curriculum alongside all the other national curriculum subjects. But that will require a change in the law because the 88 Education Act set up agreed syllabuses, set up agreed syllabus conferences, so that will have to be removed from statute. And
we're okay for 4 years. Then.
You're okay. You're fine because, and the aim is that actually, if it's like any of the others, it won't talk about a pedagogical approach. It'll talk about the content of the curriculum. So actually, if the Derby agreed syllabus fits with the new national curriculum, then people can continue teaching what they're doing with maybe a few tweaks to it. One thing I have also heard, and it's very interesting when I've been looking at your constitution document, is that there is a discussion around removing the concept of principal religions. But actually, you would look at all religions that are relevant to your school. So actually, where we have thematic units, for example, in the Derby agreed syllabus, if you had a community of Baha'i, be teaching the Baha'i faith there, Jainism, those things. So there is that discussion. But at the moment, the discussion with Vanessa was amongst a group of people saying, is there a desire for a national curriculum? And the RE world really does seem to say, yes, there is, to bolster the subject. And one of the things that came out about that is it's very much going to focus around the national content standard. That's been used at Sarah Lane Court and the RE Council, that people signed up to a national content standard that will go forward to base a curriculum on. That's the one thing that covers across them. And in fact, the Derby agreed syllabus does reference the national content standard as well already. So actually, it could be some really big changes coming over the next few years. One thing, personally, think about this one is as well, that actually maybe therefore we might have some more RE teachers being the national curriculum. We'll probably need some more RE teachers. Yes, but at the moment we're hearing things very, very frequently. I was saying to Shaheen as well, I was at a meeting last week at the Ministry of Housing, local communities, right? And they're talking about RE and equity, diversity, inclusion, and talking to DFE about the impact going along with personal development that RE can have on the wider pupil and the wider life of people, not just an academic study of it. But that key phraseology, because I was and we have a representative of the Catholic Church here. I was in a Sacre the day after the curriculum assessment review came out, and the Catholic Education Service had put forward a statement. But actually, as I say, Vanessa said there is no desire or intention to disrupt church schools in teaching of RE. That was at a meeting. I'm just fine. That was at a meeting that was held on Bonfire Night that she said that one. So
Thank you for that. I'll open up to questions in a little while. You said that the proposal is to remove principal religion. Will that require changing the law, being mindful of the 1944 Education Act and the significance of that still, even though there've been rescission? But, I mean, you may not be able to answer that. And also with the RE becoming part of the national curriculum, I see that as probably elevating the roles of SACRA. And I just wondered whether SACRA is being used as a prelude for bringing back local education authorities. See that in education. Wouldn't it be good if we had LEAs again? So once again, the local jurisdiction in terms of democracy have a great say and responsibility in terms of education and the delivery and the discharge of education. That's just my bit. Okay.
Just a question, a matter of interest. When it talks about training more RE teachers, the one thing that concerns me about that is that in my experience at meetings, I discovered people with degrees in fine art and all sorts of things training as RE teachers. And just as I wouldn't think that I could train as a maths teacher because it would have an impact on the maths that I taught, is there any way that SACRES can make a recommendation at least that there must be some allied discipline at least involved before a person is accepted for RE training? Because it has such an impact. I mean, one of the first SACRE meetings that I attended here, we bemoaned the fact that RE was taught badly. And one of the reasons why it's taught badly is that the poor person who's teaching doesn't have a clue what they're talking about. And so if there's this new revision, and I'm glad the A-level and GC has been revised, because in 2016 it was destroyed, in my view. So let's redeem it. But that's a side issue. But we must have properly qualified people teaching the subject.
Well, we have a union representation here, and I no doubt you'd be keen about quality assurance and who is, yes, so I'm sure there'll be lobbying from your end. But I'll bring you in a minute, Imran, but if you wanted to.
I do think that's one of the things that the DFE has not given any bursaries this year to training for RE. So other subjects have bursaries, RE does not. It's also interesting that a university not a long way away, but not Derby, obviously, but Nottingham's closing out its theology department.
That's what's
and Birmingham University is now closing its PGCE for RE secondary as well. So there is, people are not going into the profession of RE teaching. And within the report that Jack sent out on my behalf, I put the A-level data for people doing A-level RE, and that's declining as well. And that's impacting then on people going forward. So if it does become a national curriculum subject, one of the things that we're hearing is it's 2 or 3 years to start training teachers on understanding religion and really getting out there to do that. Quite a few school centre initiatives training providers are now having RE specialists training for secondary. So that's a really interesting thing. But it is something that SACRES can do, is to comment on the lack of a bursary. And NATRE, the National Association of RE, and there's a link within the report I sent around for you to make comment on that one too, the DFE.
Just to add, I was there at the start of curriculum 2000, and it was the fastest growing subject at GCSE and A-level. From 2000 to 2016, it was the fastest growing. We were reducing lots of students going to university to read philosophy, theology, classics, and all that sort of stuff. It's only subsequent to the 2016 revision that things have been in decline. And so it's a tragedy that Nottingham, which had an excellent theology department,
Absolutely.
Birmingham, excellent theological department. It's a tragedy that this might be coming too late, but maybe they might revive again. I mean, I think it's a tragedy that Derby closed its RE department.
once you close a university department, it's virtually impossible to resurrect
Yes.
because the infrastructure goes, as you understand. Imran and then Judith.
So welcome that contribution from Stuart as well. In terms of the opportunity here to reset the workforce almost. What about the existing workforce? And the workload that's there. So it's obliged to ask that question. Yeah, so has there been any thought given to that or any trainings around whatever the new curriculum might look like? Or
I think when we get the curriculum, because as I say, Vanessa will not be publishing a report until the end of March, because she's going to become a RISE advisor for the, well, she's going to lead the RISE team at DFE. So after that one, I think given the fact that that will be March 2026 and it's teaching for September 28, I think it will be I think it should be quick. They'll need to get it quickly into schools, ready for first teaching, especially if you've got GCSEs and A levels as well.
Absolutely. Judith, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I think perhaps that the profile of RE is being sort of raised. And I do get that feeling. I have concerns, have several. One that this will no doubt now be inspected by Ofsted, who may not have any kind of experience of judging the quality of RE. Presumably, will it take away the church inspections? They will go as well. Okay. And my other concern is, I'm glad to hear they still value Sacre, because my immediate feeling was that this was an excuse to get rid of Sacres because their role was being taken away. So that is coming through, that they should do value.
Yeah.
Even though we won't have that role of assembling a curriculum, they do think we have a view.
Yeah, and that's the clear thing they made clear, that the Agree Syllabus conference will go, because there'll be no need for an Agree Syllabus conference, but the Sacre they're really keen to retain. And that's the message that also comes through, not just from the DFE and the people on the car, but also from other.
Oh, it's been a bit
departments.
tenuous over recent years of whether Sacres would be kept. So that's good to hear.
if that happens, we can take over the council.
Okay. Yeah, Cheryl. Cheryl and then
I'm just consciously aware that, you know, when you're talking about the quality of teaching, etc., particularly in secondary schools, I've had many colleagues raise issues with me that their timetable has been adjusted and they've been put in to teach RE. And with all the best will in the world, there's been no training given to them. So they are given, not in many cases, they are given a package and said, deliver this. And then they have to research it and whatever. In some cases, it isn't a package, it's possibly just a piece of planning to actually say this is what's got to be delivered today. So I think there's got to be some form of respect that these teachers are being dropped into this situation in a lot of cases. And especially when we're going into some academies, that those situations then escalate into a capability for a teacher. Thinking, well, hold on a minute, you've put me in there, you haven't trained me to do that job.
Absolutely.
And it isn't that the teacher doesn't want to do the job or to teach the pupils in front of them, but they'd like to be able to have some training to do it. Primary, it's a little bit different because obviously the subjects are, within there every single week, and the religion is taught a little bit different, where we do celebrate each faith, etc. But I think the biggest concern for me is there isn't a great deal of specialist RE teachers in secondary school, as much as, there would be for a history teacher or a geography teacher. And let me tell you, those people in those humanity departments that teach history and geography are asked to do RE. And you could have somebody who is an art teacher being asked to do RE, and that becomes the uncomfortable part, because you don't want to force your own value on it, and you do want to be able to open up a discussion, but it does put the teacher in a difficult situation, and that's where the fear of teaching education comes from, not necessarily what the subject is.
qualified individuals teaching specialism. Amanda.
Two observations really. I guess the first one is, will the Working Party, the National Working Party, look towards local authorities that have spent some time really thinking carefully about what that curriculum looks like, because I'd like to think that actually I feel really proud of the fact that what we're looking at is a curriculum for young people that looks at the commonalities and doesn't teach things in isolation. I think that's really important. So I'd like to think that's one of the considerations. And two, I'm not here to support Ofsted. But what I would say is there's been a huge drive over the past couple of years to upskill inspectors around inspecting RE. And I know from my counterparts at the diocese that CFE and Ofsted have been in touch to create, been in touch with different religious groups across the country to get a really clear idea of what it is you're looking at when you're inspecting the different faiths. And I think the fact that that's coming together will be really useful as well moving forward. So there's a lot of thinking that's going into DFE's work and Ofsted dovetailing together. I'd like to.
Do you want to come in?
Yeah, just quickly, I just thought.
Just tell.
Sorry, yeah, I'm Kieran, secretary for the NEU in City, but I'm also a qualified RE teacher. But yeah, I just thought it's probably worth just remembering the context that the education system's in a more or less permanent crisis and has been for quite a few years. And it's not just RE where there aren't enough teachers who are coming in or staying. Recruitment and retention's just been a continual crisis point. Targets have been missed every year, no matter how much the last government lowered them for, I think, at least the last 10 years, pretty much. So in terms of if you want to build in good quality RE teaching, it's got to be seen as part of that general move to invest in schools. And also, I think one of the key things that's a big worry is a lot of the attempts to fill in gaps in teachers has been to turn to non-university based teacher training. That's resulted in, new teachers not getting good pedagogical training and not getting that kind of postgraduate kind of level of expertise. And I think there needs to be a shift back towards recognising the value of university training routes, as well as seriously investing in teacher recruitment and retention.
Absolutely. Did you want anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing there is that we have found that 51% of our lessons are taught by non-specialists in secondary.
Okay, right. Thank you. For no further contributions, we just want to formally update. We just want to formally accept the updates that we've received from Ian, and no doubt you will keep us informed further. Whilst it is to be welcomed that RE will get its rightful status in terms of the national curriculum, I think we need to recognise that that comes at the cost of resourcing and investment. So I'm hoping that the respective lobbies will make sure that the Department for Education are listening and hopefully delivering in due course.
It should be as a separate right to this person who is reviewing it and say exactly, that's, we would hope that the resort will go in, ensure, good training, hopefully university level, but will and that bursaries will be provided for RE teacher training.
Councillor was asking us to consider writing formally acknowledge the proposed changes, which are positive, but also asking that the resourcing of the changes is taken into consideration.
And
is this something that the committee agree with?
Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, is that okay?
I was going to suggest, Councillor Wright, the Secretary agrees for Councillor Wright, perhaps to write the letter or to lead on writing the letter, and then a copy is circulated perhaps to the chairs of the Secretaries. And that would be, because clearly the letter's not come to this meeting. I'm not sure the next meeting will line up in order to be able to get it signed. So perhaps that's the
Right,
route.
okay, so we'll frame a letter, you'll assist me framing a letter, and it will go to them from a press. So hopefully they'll sit up and take note. Okay, right, if there are no further contributions, can we move to the annual reports, which you've received a copy of, and we're asking you to, if you've looked at it, feedback, and to accept it. Did you want to say something?
Alongside, yes, alongside my colleague Jack and I will talk you through the report. Just to say, I'm very proud to say this is the second year in a row that Derby Sacre is presenting this to the DFE. So because it didn't take place when we had a joint agreed syllabus, so well, a joint Sacre. So pleased to say, hopefully you've, in admiration of the photo on the front of the report, which I'm very proud of, because that demonstrates it took place, and RE launch took place in the council chamber. But the report includes some key information that the DFE require, and thanks to RE today that have given us a template that we've been able to adapt for this process, because they helped support that process last year. So hopefully all the information that you're presented with is something that you are familiar with. Thank you to Councillor Wright for providing our forward, and I know we were
short, very short notice, but anyway,
apologies for that, but it's there. Jack, I don't know if you want to help. Shall we double team this? Is there anything you'd like to?
No, it's just to flag that the report is submitted to the Department for Education by the end of the calendar year, and that your decision today is to approve that report, subject to any comments.
Yeah, can I draw your attention to information? Obviously, the report the forward by Councillor Wright is very important, and please, I hope you have reviewed that. But in terms of page 5, I think it's really important to draw your attention to the work that we have been able to undertake in the last academic year, and that's something to celebrate. So yeah, but in terms of the content, hopefully it's all satisfactory. Does anybody have any questions about that? And the information in terms of results, whilst it's a very pretty table, I cannot take credit except to say we have a reporting system that I've been able to acquire that information, but I am particularly proud of the tables that don't have that format, because they're the tables that I've put together based on the information. But it also, hopefully, page 11, for example, gives you an outline of what we've been able to do in terms of the training for schools as well. There are some gaps, and we are going to look at developing this moving forward in terms of getting governor input, for example, and we'll be able to include our hopeful working group in terms of collective worship and what that will look like. But that's something that we will build into this reporting structure. That, again, I say is in its infancy. It's the second of these that we've produced as a Sacre. Do we have any questions about the content?
Since Councillor Ashby.
It's not a question, just a couple of typos initially I noticed.
Okay, yes.
Or a question mark about a factory.
Okay.
On page 11, it says the launch date, and also I think on another page, the launch date for the syllabus was the 30th of April.
Yes.
And I think it was down as a different date.
Okay.
And at the end of page 12, it says East Midland as opposed to East. So just
it does indeed.
So I just thought it was going to be a formal report. But my main question was in terms of composition.
Yes.
Because on I didn't put page number on that, but it gave composition of the Sacre on the 19th of December and the 25th of June. But that sounded as if the membership had changed. And I know it will have done for councillors after May, but I think that was more to do with attendance than composition.
Okay.
Because it looks like, for example, that I'm no longer a member of Sacre, which of course I am. I just sent my apologies for June. So I just think it's a little bit of terminology. I don't know whether we want membership or composition.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Jack and I can pick that up.
Okay. Councillor Morgan, please.
Well, thanks, Chair. Councillor, I promise we've not been comparing the notes, but similarly, there's one or two typos and errors. So I encourage a final sweep through just to make sure that it's all in equipment. There's a reference to Debris as a city in there, for example. Rather than
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a couple of things.
Probably more than a Freudian slip.
Yeah, Freudian perhaps. I'll leave it with you to do that final sweep. And there's a section on governance, which it appears like it's an element of it has been duplicated across 2 pages. Just a few things to tidy up. I'll leave that with you. But other than that, the development plan, pages 41 to 44. In there, I wonder if there's an opportunity to add some owners and priorities in there so that we can track progress against it when we publish the next report next year. I had also a question around are we monitoring attendance per meeting or composition, because it does read like attendance, and if it is attendance, it's not right. But you've already mentioned that. Right.
And I didn't add, thank you. I thought it was a great report. Sorry.
Yeah. Well said. It is a good report. Almost there, the CPD section on page 36, perhaps a line on the impact of the feedback from the CPD session would be very good as well. It would be a shame not to have some feedback on the back of such a good event.
Absolutely.
Oh, and finally, on page 40, perhaps some clarification on the report that's come out. At the time of reviewing this, we didn't have the report, and now we have, so I assume that's going to be incorporated into it.
Just repeat that question again, sorry.
It's a clarification on the A-level data.
Yep.
Yes, yes.
I was reviewing, the A-level data wasn't out, and even though I've got it now, I've not had a chance to review it. So I'm just, I assume that will be in.
Yes, yeah, no, we'll update the report with the A-level data included. I think the A-level data that's referred to in the body of the report refers actually to the last round of SACRE. Yeah. I should say as well, just by way of response, Shane presented a report, but I should take credit for all of the spelling mistakes. So I should be very clear about that. And the other point on the action plan was that we're reporting the action plan in a separate report to SACRE, and we have received that feedback to put the owners and to be able to track that in terms of target dates. It was just in terms of the actual report that's going to the Department for Education. We thought we'd keep that slimmer, so to speak, and put into the other report.
Makes sense as you've described it, actually, Jack.
Yeah.
Thanks for explaining that. I must say, other than that, very good report, and perhaps even once it's beyond draft and it's everything's crossed and teed, etc. Perhaps we could even share it with council, because I'm sure they'd like some insight into what goes on.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very, very helpful feedback. Is there scope for people to feed in comments to you? When does it have to go off? Because it's
December, the end of December.
Oh, right.
And I like to beat a deadline, so if we can do that sooner rather than later.
If you have any feedback in the meantime, could you let Jack have it as soon as possible so that it can be refined?
Perhaps I could say that the decision to approve subject to minor amendments could be made today.
I think that's the direction we're going in. Is that okay? So subject to refinement, we accept the report. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
And your final copies, you send it out to us?
Yeah, you'll get one.
We also record our thanks for the report.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes. I mean, I think it's in all, it's been quite an impressive year in terms of what this committee has achieved. So it's thanks to everyone here, really. Yeah. Cheryl, have you picked something up?
Yeah, just on page 51 of 62, it's got a 2 above it. It's just on Group C, National Union of Teachers. That needs to be its new name.
Right.
Education Union.
Is this the separate? Is this on? The next report. We can pick that up because that's something we've.
Councillor, I'm afraid I have a clash.
Yes.
So if you can excuse me, I do apologise.
We're almost through, actually. We're almost through.
Well, I can wait about another 5 minutes.
That'd be very helpful. Okay, if there are no further comments, so we accept the report subject to revision. Okay, thank you. Item 8, which is the constitution There is, Jack, do you want to mention it, that we've had representation from the humanist group asking to be a member of this committee. If that, we would have to get permission from full council in order for them to become a representative member.
I think there's a broader, the report that's been provided is following the action plan, following the self-evaluation group, and that took place about a year ago now. The self-evaluation group asked to kind of bring the constitution to the SACRA's attention, and for you to have an opportunity to look at it and understand it, to ask any questions should you like. This is your opportunity to do so. The thing I would flag is that the power to amend the constitution sits with full council. It doesn't sit with SACRA itself. And so it would be for SACRA to reflect on the constitution, perhaps develop a report or develop some recommendations to agree in this forum, and for that to be submitted to full council. As Councillor Wright alludes to, there has been a request for a humanist representative to sit on the SACRA. There is not currently a position on the SACRA for that. And so that would require a recommendation to council. And the final thing to say is that as part of this review, one of the things to pick up are some of those minor kind of outdated errors in the constitution, like the names of certain trade unions. We'll pick those up, but we just need to do that. We thought it was best to do that in a all in one, make all of the amendments at one time, and take that to council as opposed to piecemeal.
Okay, any feedback from the constitution is additional to what you would be informed of? Go on.
Yeah, just in terms of the humanist representation, I don't know if you're aware of the Bowen judgment from, I'm sure some colleagues are, that actually Kent County Council was found to have acted unlawfully by refusing to have a humanist on Committee A.
Quite right.
So actually, the High Court found in favour of Humanist UK, so the humanist should be a representative on Committee A of the SACRA. So, and it does say that as a result, no local authority should now refuse. So that's just, well, that is something for the council. The Bowen judgment from the High Court, and that was September 2023. So that's something for the council to reflect on.
So secondly, are we agreeing with a proposal to the full council to ask that the constitution be amended to include humanist representation? Is that agreement?
Yes.
Could I also, one of the, I'm really well aware that there's lots of different Christian churches named there, but there's quite a large group of independent churches in Derby. It's quite large attendance, much more so than some of the Christian churches that are named here. And there is no representative, if they would attend anyway, who knows, from the independent churches such as Reach and I don't know whether that could be considered.
I think so. I think it should be as inclusive as possible.
Yeah.
So perhaps we can look at the Christian churches and add as appropriate.
Councillor Ashby, could we have a conversation about exactly who you'd be talking about outside of the meeting?
Yes,
and we're obviously,
So yeah, two sort of things here. One is to do with the union seats, you know, in terms of representation here. So there was a sort of amalgamation of the Association of Teachers and Lecturers with the National Union of Teachers, which created the National Education Union. And I think that's why there may be two representatives here today from the National Education Union. Is that right or not? I think would be best decided based on the amount of teacher members we have actually across the city. And that might look different from Nottingham or somewhere else. But I also realise that this is not really reflected in the religious representations from the different religions. But we don't really have a proper grasp of that, given the ONS statistics. we just all the Christians together, and it doesn't give representation for independent churches or other denominations. So that's something else I think that maybe from this SACRE, we could try and get those statistics from somewhere. I don't know how, from maybe the city council's electoral register or the other kind of data that's demographics. Just flagging that with my social scientist graduate hat on, and then just so kind of say maybe that's why we've got 2 seats. Is that still appropriate? Is that not? But we would have to gather our own membership numbers in order to be able to really look at that together in a transparent way.
And that's for the union seats, is it? I don't,
like a little about religious.
but I don't know whether union seats, the criterion that's used for that, that's not numbers, is it? It's not about membership of the union.
So I can confirm that in terms of the framework within which constitutions are made, it's Group A and Group C, SACREs and the councils can make decisions on representation based on their proportionate strength in the area. One of the reasons that probably sits behind why that perhaps isn't so reflected in the current constitution is because of that lack of data. And to make decisions like that, the SACRE would need reasons to be able to provide to council, because that's part of the framework within which councils sit. I think that's probably also why the last review of the constitution was in 2021, because that was when the last set ONS data came forward. I think we need to be really careful about what data we draw on and making sure that the data we have is consistent across and is available across all unions, and not potentially picking up on having certain unions giving information and others not. So we need to be careful of that moving forward.
So we need to gather that data locally, or at least present it publicly, but we need to know as a SACRE. And so maybe that request needs to come from the SACRE to the local union to say, we need that data. Otherwise, you don't have accurate representation. And that's a free request or any other way.
I think it's probably better to approach the TUC for that rather than specific unions. The TUC would be able to give you some sort of a mapping. Kieran, am I correct here, of the unions and their membership for the region locality?
I think, to be honest, I think it'd probably be useful if, as trade unions, we met outside this meeting to see how we want to approach this.
Yeah.
So not sure. I don't think we've had a discussion before about how we want this to look. So I think we should bring it back to second.
Right. Will you do that then? Group C, aren't you? Yeah. Okay. Did you want to say something, Cheryl?
Here said that, which I'm happy to do, is that when ATL became part, they became joint venture, we did have a period of time, which was about 12 months, I'm sure you'll agree, where both representatives were still working as, until they amalgamated fully, and then everybody was represented as NEU. And we did lose our colleagues, and then that wasn't for my business to sort out, that was for our colleagues in the NEU to work out who was going to be representing them there. It didn't affect us, didn't affect any other trade union. It was purely their internal working from that. But it worked out for policy working groups, etc. It was one representative per union for that.
Thank you for that. But as I think a conversation outside of this meeting would be useful. Okay, if there are no Councillor
Just got a few rambles and might land on, it might not. Group A, it seems, hasn't been reviewed for some time. I'm looking at the demographic table. I'm not sure it accurately reflects the makeup required or linked into conversations we've already had, but I do wonder if it's time to review that. And not necessarily that needs to be changed in the constitution, but I think it's time for review. The term in the constitution is potentially confusing. Don't think it's a material issue, but according to, if you read it literally, everybody was appointed in 2016. on a 4-year term that continues to this date, if you read it literally. So tidy up the wording there. They're appointed on the date that they're appointed rather than in 2016. Hats off, Chair. I still don't properly understand the voting protocol in this committee, and I'm not much wiser after having read the Constitution. So I don't know if that could be made plainer or easier to absorb for new members of the committee. The voting system, the wording of it is quite dense. I just wonder if it could be tidied up before it goes to full council for approval. Again, just an editorial clean up, the page numbering and things like that. Just need a quick little bit of attention. That's it. Just the main point being that the Group A and the composition of the voting, without getting the Group A work right, I'm concerned about the chorusy of this committee going forward, because I feel like we're right on the edge of quorum each time we meet, and so not today. It's a good show today. So that's just worth a thought. Review that.
Okay, thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, about those two groups in particular need to have proportional representation based on the demographic of the membership of the religious group or of the Teachers Association within the city. Is that right?
So they don't need to. It's a consideration. And I guess one of the points I was going to come back just to say is that it's a consideration for the SACRE as to how to strike the balance between getting the proportionality whilst not having such a huge SACRE that we're meeting in the council chamber and it's not a kind of face-to-face conversation like this. I think that's part of what's behind as well. Maybe there are only two religions on Group A where there are 2 members, and every other Group A denomination only has 1 member. And I think the idea there is the proportionality was considered at this point to be secondary to getting the kind of breadth of representation in the group. So there's 2 considerations. It's getting the proportionality right, but it's also getting the kind of efficiency of the SACRE right and getting the size.
Is this the same proportion on every SACRE across the country? So each council decides.
Is it locally determined?
Yep. Yeah, so the guidance is, has this, which is the 1996 Education Act, is appropriately reflect the religious traditions in the area. So the local, so the authority decide who represents.
Yeah.
And similarly with Committee C is the opinion of the authority, the teacher associations, which ought to be represented. So it is a decision of the authority as a statutory body of the authority.
You must base it on some sort of data.
Yes. Yeah. That's where. Yeah. Okay. Any further points? Okay, thank you. So we'll note the report, subject to once again editing.
So
and the decision,
perhaps the decision based on today, given the point about humanism, is to referral to council in respect to humanist rep.
Looking at proportionality.
So I ask that broader piece of work is brought back in future for SACRE to reconsider, but just those urgent points to start off with being some of the typos and making sure it's just slightly neater.
Councillor McGee, that's okay.
Point to clarify, it's 4-year term. Councillors are appointed on a 1-year term, if I'm not correct.
It says that.
It does. Okay, just
I think
so I was thinking forward to
everybody else.
Organisation.
Well, yes.
That's fine.
But it does somewhere say councillors are 1 yearly.
Yeah.
Somebody's just keeping it right.
Yeah. Okay. We'll finish up with it. Okay. Right. Thank you. So we've got the actions. About the actions there, Jack. Okay, so item 9, the meeting times and venues, Jack.
This has been a request from the committee to provide the opportunity for SACRE members to query times and venues for the meeting. Traditionally, it's been 4:30 because it's directly right at the point of working hours for people. So it's the idea that people could come straight from work. Venues, I believe, council house has just tended to be the kind of easiest administratively for us, to be honest. But there have been suggestions that other places could be considered. We need a bit of a lead in with that. So this is the opportunity to make any points on meeting times and venues.
We need to bear in mind that this is an open meeting to the public. So wherever, in terms of venue we're at, we have to be able to give access to the public.
Yeah, so this also came from our review of the reporting and the working group. And so a couple of places I was suggesting was, one was the open sector, in order for to be able to work with the open sector with a view to go in to do things like collective worship and things. And the other was the multi-faith centre was another venue. Again, to kind of like link in with the work they're doing as well, what religious space that we use. But of course, there will be the infrastructure to be able to what you guys need, you know. And so maybe that works, maybe that doesn't work. Maybe that's an additional meeting for yeah.
Okay.
Whether it's a 4:30 or 5 or 5:30, it's a time when there's very heavy traffic on the road anyway.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the problem is you don't want people to have to go home and then come out again. So 4:30, is there a consensus that we continue with that, because it dovetails into people coming from those who come from work? Is that okay, Kieran?
I'm just going to say, because obviously I was unfortunately a bit late tonight because I had to rush here, and I was thinking it might need to be a little bit of a grace possibly to start for people who are dashing in, maybe 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
Are you still planning on alternating the days? Because we've had sort of Wednesdays and now Tuesday, and the next one's on a Thursday, isn't it? Is that like current thinking?
Is that problematic?
Well, some days are easier than others for everybody. So I get that we just have to accept that people might be present at one but not present at another. But can I put a personal plea in for not another one right in the end of December? It was December the 19th, and that's why I was missing it. I'm joking.
I think that was the agreed syllabus conference, the second one that we ran. So yes.
All right. Item 10, the work programme. Any comments on the work? Okay. Any other business? Shireen, do you have any other business?
Just that I wanted to share feedback from schools that the framework has been received well. The anti-racist unit, the CK unit has had positive feedback, which is great, and I wanted to cascade that. I've also had some photographic pictorial feedback from a primary school that I've shared with Jack, and hopefully he'll disseminate that. I was hoping we'd find it somewhere, but maybe not appropriate for the report, so that will be shared with you. Several of our LA maintained schools have raised concerns around within the school the racism that they are currently seeing, particularly within the Muslim community. So it'd be useful to be able to have a conversation, and I wanted to bring that to this space because even within the Muslim faith, there are different Muslims that are saying challenging, inappropriate things within their settings, and schools are trying to support that. But even with the anti-racist unit, they feel more could be done. So I wanted to note that here and tell you that that is something that we'll be picking up in the RE network. But I've also reached out to Ian, who also not only is our RE Today advisor, but he's got a specialist understanding with his training in terms of Islamic. I mean, I don't want to speak on your behalf, but his qualifications will enable him to help support that academic conversation. But I was hoping I could call upon the expertise of this group to help form that conversation about what that work would look like. For example, we understand within one setting, a group of Pakistani young people have been behaving in a way that is unacceptable towards a group of other Muslim young people and saying their understanding of Islam is not right. We need to challenge that. But as you've already alluded to today, we've got non-specialist RE teachers managing that space. and the RE framework has been able to support to a certain extent, but not enough. So we do need to pick up that piece of work, and I think that fits into the broader social cohesion space anyway. But I wanted to make you aware that Ian has kindly offered to support a conversation in the first instance. But if anybody has an interest in supporting that conversation, please do let me know, because I'm mindful that within the community, I think it'd be helpful if places of worship, our mosques, will be able to help support that conversation as well. So yes.
I'll just go to Aquin. Please go on.
It's great to know that we're conscious and aware of the things that are going on. More than happy for you guys to reach out whenever, facilitate whatever you require, even if it is meeting up with the RE leads and discussing with them what we can do for them, schools. And in terms of our facilities, whatever resources and stuff we have at the mosque, whether it be teachers going out and educating. A lot of us do have PGCs. I'm impressed to get mine now as well. So we're more than happy to facilitate wherever we can.
And that's really helpful. Yeah, thank you very much. We've got some schools that have really, some head teachers that have reached out for support. So maybe if I help connect a conversation, then we can look at developing that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Imran.
Also have some conversation. Former RE teacher. I used to teach Islamic studies up to A level. And I used to have students within the classroom who were from Shia and Sunni, different denominations, and they were actually friends outside the classroom as well. They're able to have really challenging conversations around the in the classroom too, and still work together.
Just wanted to actually, are these denominational matters similarly to the ones we find in Christianity?
Yes, I would suggest
Protestants.
Yes, I think so. But I think the challenge is that, like all situations, the young people are hearing this information at home, and it's using the keeping children safe in education language, the misinformation and disinformation of that is what we need to help support.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
A small
Dr. Dillon?
comment. I think Islamophobia, Semitism, these come prominently in the media, and people talk about. We as a Sikh also get embraced into this as a misunderstanding because of our turban and hair. Occasionally, when I was a lecturer at Makwa, I would be called Bin Laden after 9/11. But the recent example of this is the attack in Wolverhampton on the two elderlies, as well as the Gurdwara. So we get taken for a mosque and as a Muslim, and nobody addresses this at all, neither the media nor anybody else, because the police will say, well, we haven't got anything to address this. So I think somewhere be mindful of respecting everybody. But if this is an issue in your own school or in your own local environment, that you ought to, hence it goes back to RE teacher knowing more than just, I've been there for a very long time with Multi-Faith Center, and remember sitting on some of the panels for interviewing a head of chaplain or a director. And when I asked them anything about my religion or anything to do, how would you deal with that? And the brain was total blank.
Thank you for that. Okay, so no further comments. The date of the next meeting, 26th of March. My goodness, it's not on way away. 26th of March, 2026.
it's only around the corner.
Yeah, there'll be a lot in between there. Okay, thank you. This has been a really good attendance. Thank you very much for giving your time.